Hello, I'm Orkhan Amashov. Welcome to Headlines. Just a few days before the official start of the new Republican administration under President Donald Trump on the 17th of January, Russia and Iran signed what is formally known as Comprehensive Strategic Partnership Agreement. With both nations having been subjected to Western sanctions, the agreement in question has been largely perceived as a joint effort by Moscow and Tehran to improve their global standing and to counter third-party interference in regional affairs. Iran's foreign minister described the Strategic Cooperation Treaty as a key turning point, adding that it's not a mere political agreement, but a roadmap to the future. The treaty formalizes existing arrangements between these two countries attained earlier, covering various sectors, including economy, energy, in particular nuclear energy, trade, and so forth. However, the deal stops short of incorporating a mutual defense clause, merely stating that the treaty signatories would not give any military or other aid to the aggressor that would facilitate the continuation of the aggression. Well, bearing in mind the wider context surrounding Russia-Iran relations and some other underpinnings, it seems to me that there's a lot to unpack here. And joining me now to fulfill this function, Turaj Shiralilu, political analyst from Tehran, Iran, and Ahmad Alili, director of the Caucasus Policy Analysis Center, who is joining us from Baku. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining me today.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Turaj, my first question is going to be addressed to you. This treaty does contain 47 articles. It does cover a wide range of issues. But what's new about it? And could you please reflect on the timing of the treaty signing? We know that officially both Iran and Russia downplayed the significance of the timing, with Kremlin spokesperson Peskov saying that it's not at all related to Trump's inauguration. And I think Abbas Araghchi, Iranian foreign minister, said that it had been underway, the process of signing, for some time.
I think the timing is a coincidence. This agreement, the strategic one, has been in the pipeline for a couple of years. The first time it was, the news broke out was back in 2013 or 14, when President Rouhani was in office, who broke the news that such an agreement will be signed. At that time, the idea was that the usual bilateral agreements between Iran and Russia will be promoted to a strategic level. Something which was, in the meantime, was in between, very much noticeable, was that the Russian side did not like or was not interested in calling its relations with Iran strategic. And as ordinarily, they call it friendly or close relationship, but never strategic. Now that the Russian side has agreed and conceded to call it a strategic agreement, away from the usual agreements that have been signed for a couple of years, since 2001, I think it's a breakthrough for the Iranian side. The timing, as you said, just a few days before inauguration of Mr. Trump in office, I think is not significant, because both countries have been involved in negotiations for signing this agreement for such a long time, at least for a couple of years, if not saying 10 years back. But I believe that now, yes, the idea is that the background has changed. When those agreements were signed between Iran and Russia, it was against a very different geopolitical background, which is now is quite shaping and emerging. It's not only the case that Mr. Trump is in office, and as you said, both Iran and Russia are under pressures, economic pressures, not only from the United States, but also from the Western countries. So they are after a way out of this pressure. Through such agreements, they hope that they can get enough synergy out of mutual cooperation to step or outskirt such pressures by the Western countries. And of course, both countries say that Western countries are using their hegemonic powers. They want to control these independent states. And such an agreement at the strategic level, from ordinary or usual or conventional level to a strategic level, I think it's a breakthrough.
Thank you, Turaj. Ahmad, what's your general reflection on this threat in the first place? You earlier, before the interview, said that it's a bit outdated as a news, as a piece of news. But do you think there is anything, amongst those 47 articles entailed therein that could be of particular interest to Azerbaijan, Iran's regional neighbor? For example, some analysts appear to suggest that Article 19, stating, amongst other things, the necessity of opposing unilateral coercive measures, could be construed as a mechanism developed against Azerbaijan's Zangezur corridor project, the overland passage connecting Azerbaijan's mainland with Nakhchivan exclave. What is your general reflection on the treaty in principle, and anything you think that Azerbaijan should be worried about?
Well, this is why I call it outdated, because these days our news feed, they are changing very fast. So what I meant with the President Trump's inauguration ceremony and the news storm that he generated, so many things are changing. So that's why. But as you rightly mentioned after that, whatever concerns Russia and Iran, the two big neighbors that Azerbaijan have, it's not outdated never it's going to be outdated. Azerbaijan is going to be always alert and focused on those issues, on those developments. Azerbaijan is going to follow this news very closely. So that is why the context is changing very fast. The content stays the same, and in terms of the content, it's not outdated, but the context, the world is changing very fast. So that is why it's not about any agreement that Russia and Iran might say. It's about any agreement that might be saying today, how long they are going to survive, because the context is changing very fast. Again, President Trump, before November 2024, the context of the international relations, it was different from what happened after November. Now, after the President Trump's inauguration ceremony, it's a completely different scenario. The developments taking place in Syria these days, or in December, it changed the context overall. So that is why, that I agree that this kind of document, they cannot be designed overnight. They cannot be signed overnight, but it's definitely the changing context and the changing role of the US in world politics and the changing administration in Washington that definitely affects how we see it. But of course, Azerbaijan is very much interested in greater trade relations between Russia and Iran, because Azerbaijan is going to be one of the primary beneficiaries of it, because most of the trade routes are going to pass over Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is very much interested that there is quite a good, stable relations between Iran and Russia. That's going to affect the South Caucasus and Azerbaijan also. Azerbaijan shares borders with Iran and Russia. So that means that if these two big neighbors are in good friendly relations, Azerbaijan is going to benefit a lot from this moment also. So that is why Azerbaijan is very much happy to see that there is a quite stable, peaceful relations between two big countries that it shares neighborhood. But at the same time, I believe that you talked about the Zangezur corridor. I believe Azerbaijan is looking for reaction to U.S. Armenia strategic partnership charter, right? What's going to be reaction from Iran and Russia on that? Because most of the messages from Iran that Azerbaijan receives, it's about not having any third country in the region. And Azerbaijan shares that sentiments that the regional affairs should be part of the regional agenda. But now when Azerbaijan tries to build relations with other actors, there is I would say, the strong reaction from Iran and Russia. And now there is Iran. So it means that the red lines, are they moved, right? So if they are moved, what's going to be about Armenia-US cooperation in this context, the stronger presence of United States and European Union in the region, what's going to be the reaction of Iran and Russia on this issue? So it means that if there is so it also opens certain opportunities for Azerbaijan. So not being that, let's say, focused on certain aspects, because Armenia kind of blurred that red lines right now. Or I would say that now that Armenian border guards are going to be trained by US personnel. And what's going to be Iranian and Russian stand on this issue? Because now Armenian and Iranian international border basically is controlled by Russia. There is a new actor coming in. It brings complete new dynamics to this regional affairs. So Azerbaijan is very much interested in that and how it's going to affect Zengezur corridor, of course. So that is why there are quite many components of this deal, and I believe that we are going to have many upcoming days and weeks to discuss and understand all of those vital components of this new deal.
Thank you, Ahmed. Turaj, of course, we may come to the point about Armenia-US strategic deal, which was, I believe, signed on the 14th of January, if memory serves me correctly. And we discussed this subject with Turaj, by the way, a few days ago. We may come back to it again to understand the wider context, of course. But my question to you, Turaj, is going to be about this particular partnership deal. What is your take on the lack of a mutual defense clause? And do you believe it's a significant moment? And also, what is the perception about this treaty in Tehran in general? Is it perceived more on the basis of its trade-related elements or security component?
To the first part of your question, why the mutual defense is not there, I think the mentality here is that Iran has never wanted to join a military bloc whatsoever. And it wants to maintain its defense sovereignty. As you said, yeah, and it's clear that there is no mutual defense. But there is one point still there, that if either party, either country is attacked by another country, the other party, contracting party to the deal, should not join the adversary. So this is the main point. Yes, they are not on mutual defense, but if one of them is attacked, the other one undertakes not to join the adversary. I think that's an important point. But again, about the second question that you mentioned on how it is perceived here, I think generally speaking, the public here was happy that this was signed. They are satisfied that, as your other guest said, Russia is a neighbor to Azerbaijan and Iran, and it's also a neighbor to Iran through the Caspian Sea. So we are bordering Russia through the Caspian Sea. We are neighbors. So it is a deal reached between two neighbors. And these two neighbors, when they reach such an agreement, which has an added element, this time around, the element of security, I think, has been boldened in this deal, because you already call it strategic. You cannot establish strategic levels without relying or promoting the hard power side of the agreement. On the soft power side, yes, we are talking of energy, we are talking of economy, we are talking of tourism, we are talking of sports, we are talking of academic relations, we are talking of Iranian-Russian cuisine, whatever. But when you come on the hard power side of the deal, which makes it strategic, that's exactly the defense ties, that's exactly the the security ties, which will be boldened and strengthened through such a long-term 20-year-old contract. So I think here, the public in general, as well as the elite, do not object to such a deal when it is getting an added element, or that element is getting boldened, influence, and that's the security side, which is boldened. And I think, as it was mentioned, you referred to the Zengezur corridor. Zengezur corridor is in the offing. It is still emerging, but I agree with Ahmed that Azerbaijan, Iran are in the middle of the north-south corridor, which is already active. It's connecting Russia to India. And Iran and Azerbaijan, I think Iran doesn't see Zengezur as a rival or as a rivalry between Iran and Azerbaijan. Iran and Azerbaijan can complement the north-south corridor, and they are already completing together this corridor. I don't think that Iran sees it or sees this defense pact as an element to stop the Zangezur project. No, I think that's a different topic. It's related to South Caucasian region. It has separate geopolitical challenges for itself and factors. But generally speaking, the public here did not say anything against or very much welcoming this, because as it was mentioned, this pact was very much overshadowed by the developments in the Western Hemisphere, in what is happening in the United States, an incoming president. And as you know, the relations between Iran and the United States have not been easy at all, at least for the couple of decades ago. So I think it was, in a sense, overshadowed in the public opinion, in fact, by the developments in the United States.
Ahmad, I mean, if to look at this issue from Russia's perspective, how would you evaluate Russia's actions aimed at balancing between Iran and other Middle Eastern countries? We know that Russia signed a couple of declarations with United Arab Emirates as well. And Russia is perceived to be more reliant on the UAE. And how will Russia be, do you think, that navigating this complex landscape involving Iran, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, in order to remain in equal distance from all of those three actors?
Well, it's not ordinary time for Russian diplomacy, right? So in ordinary times, I would say that the Russian diplomacy would find some ways to navigate between the fractions in the Middle East. As you mentioned, there are quite many various interest groups in the Middle East, and the maneuvering between them, that is what Russian diplomacy has been doing for some decades. But right now, Russia is in a state of war in Ukraine. And Russia values those countries who are ready to do close cooperation with Russia under the certain circumstances that Russia faces right now. So that is why those countries, I believe it's China, North Korea, Iran, those countries that openly or covertly, they are ready to do more than the other countries. So, and that is kind of makes the whole thing slightly easier for Russian diplomacy or Russian strategic thinking. They are going to prefer those countries that they're assisting them in real terms than just diplomatical, right? Russia now tries to be big in the global south. Because the European Union countries, extended European countries, United States, these are not the countries that Russia is going to build relations in the next decade. I believe those sanctions, they are going to affect Russia-Europe relations, Russia-United States relations for the upcoming decades. So it means that Russia has to do quite intensive diplomacy work with the Middle East. So in this context, those countries who are doing certain, let's say, they are more friendly toward Russia. Russia is of course, going to pick their sides, and in this sense, I believe that Iran is in the A list. We have seen what happened in Middle East in the Hamas Israeli war, and that was a time of choice for Russian diplomacy, and Russian diplomacy made those choices, right? So that is why it's not ordinary times for Russian diplomacy. So we cannot analyze the whole thing through like the instruments of the ordinary diplomacy is not working right now. So that's why Iran-Russia relations are very important for these two countries. And of course, like that, Iran and Russia, both of them being sanctioned by European Union and United States, opens a lot of opportunities for the cooperation between these countries. And I believe that the upcoming decades is going to be quite important in this context, both for Tehran and Moscow.
Thank you, Ahmad. Turaj, Iran-Russia relations are of great historic significance, and Azerbaijan, of course, has its own say about these relations. It has affected Azerbaijani history in many ways. But about Tehran and Moscow and the bilateral relation, there has been some criticism of this deal inside Iran and outside Iran, I think by some cleric, Mevlavi Abdul Hamid, who's a Sunni cleric based in Iran. I think it does belong to Baluch ethnic minority. They warned that this deal would increase Iran's dependency on Russia. And some Iranian dissidents, or naturally outside the country, being dissidents, claiming that it's not a treaty between equals because Iran is currently very weakened under Western sanctions and due to the latest Israeli attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities. And under the current circumstances, Iran cannot possibly sign a deal with Russia, which will be the deal between equals. What is your reflection on this particular moment, which has its own historic background?
I think it's not fair to call it dependency, but it's rather an interdependency, which means as Iran becomes dependent through this pact on Russia, Russia is also becoming dependent on Iran. So it's a case of mutual dependency or interdependency, which is a welcome phenomena in international relations. So, but talking whether these are a deal between equals, naturally it is not a deal between equals and not necessarily reached between two equals. Geographically speaking, economically speaking, whatever, Iran and Russia are not equals. But we shouldn't forget that they have converging and diverging interests. At the same time, both Iran and Moscow are facing common challenges. So at this time, they think how they can recalibrate their interests and how they can redefine their strategies. So this is a strategic pact which will calibrate their relations at the higher level. And as you said, and again, we are talking about whether this, I don't think they have been intending to target third countries in the region, as you mentioned, Azerbaijan or any other countries. The point is, Iran is a vital trade route for Russia. You were right now talking how Russia is increasing its relations with the United Arab Emirates. But how is this transit route passing? The route is passing through Iran. The route is passing through Azerbaijan. So this deal, I think, does not increase Iran's dependency on Russia. Vice versa, it is a case that Russia will be also dependent on Iran. This time around, they are going to increase their banking ties. Now, the second Russian bank opened this office in Tehran in few days back, and they have increased the status of their office from an office to a branch. So it seems that both countries have come to the fact that they need to bolster not only their military or defense ties, but also banking ties in order to circumvent those challenges, geopolitical challenges, the emerging ones, new ones, and the traditional ones. And in this way, Iran and Russia need to depend on each other. It's not a one-way street.
Turaj, earlier I think Ahmad, whilst replying to my first question, made a reference to that strategic deal signed between the United States and Armenia. We discussed the subject on the day of the signature, I'm sure you remember, and back then we were not aware of the provisions entailed therein. And back then I asked you a question, if the military component is going to be very pronounced, would Iran consider that deal as being against its interests? And now we have the knowledge about the content, of course. What is your reflection, retrospective reflection on that deal now? Because Ahmad made the reference to that, and that being a crucial component in Iranian-Azerbaijani relations. I wonder if you could share your reflections on that.
As far as my memory helps, we were discussing that this deal between the United States and Armenia, which has also defense aspects, said that Iran's prudent policy has been that, well, the United States is an enemy, or Iran and United States are on very, very hard situation, okay? But Iran and Armenia are in good ties. I made an analogy that Iran will act based on an analogy. Imagine Iran has very friendly or close ties with other neighboring countries, Turkey, which has bases of NATO uh, on its territory. Also, Iran's ties with Iraq, they have not been influenced by the fact that these two countries have close military relations uh, with the United States. And at the same time, I think because of the current situation in the South Caucasian region, which is, of course, a very hot temperature in terms of security issues, the countries there, I don't think Iran will join any military pact when it comes to the interest of a third country, a sub-regional or an extraterritorial country in this region, and Iran will follow its independent defense or military policy in the region, which is not against any third country, especially the neighboring countries.
Thank you, Turaj. I don't know, Ahmed, if you have anything to say in relation to this, by all means, if you have. And my question to you, in addition to that, is going to be about the energy projects. We know that Russia has some plans to build a railway through Iran that would connect Russia directly with the ports on the Persian Gulf. And Iranian Foreign Minister, Mr. Araghchi, spoke very enthusiastically about Iran becoming a major hub for gas exports, acting as a passageway for Russian gas exports through its network of pipelines. Do you think that this particular element could change the wider geopolitical dynamics when it comes to the what we call wider South Caucasus, 3+3 structure?
Recently, Georgian PM and Georgian MFA were Azerbaijan, and I believe that now Azerbaijan and Georgia, and they are both interested in building 1+1+1 component of this 3+3, right? So let's see how they are going to be how successful it's going to go, because it also requires certain Armenia-Azerbaijan relations in this regard. But listen, Azerbaijan is very much happy again to see any positive developments in this regard. Azerbaijan was looking for positive developments in the context of the building the railways, building pipelines. If they take place, Azerbaijan is going to be very much pleased with this outcome. And recently, like the building on what Turaj said, recently we're also seeing certain positive developments taking place between Iran and Azerbaijan, because there was the person held in Iranian prisons, and he was released. He's in Azerbaijani territory right now. And also like the person who attacked the Azerbaijan embassy in Iran, right? So it was promised in the past by Iranian officials that he is going to get the highest degree of punishment. And I believe that the court granted that recently. So it means that now Baku and Tehran, they are reaching at least certain, let's say, they're on the same page, or reaching that level of being at the same page. So it means that there are more room for implementation of this Rasht-Astara-Gazvin railway, building other pipelines, and Azerbaijan, I believe that is looking for the economic benefit from it. Azerbaijan would love to ideologize these relations with both Iran and Russia, and also Azerbaijan would love to, like the President Aliyev, he wants to move beyond Karabakh in Azerbaijan-European Union relations, Azerbaijan-United States relations, and that's the foreign policy agenda for Azerbaijan. So it means that moving beyond Karabakh and making it more pragmatic, making it more rich with the economic components. So we'd had quite many opportunities in the past with Iran. We signed, but they were not implemented because of the certain reasons. But nowadays we are seeing that recently there are increased attention to the economic problems of Iran, especially by the new presidential office in Iran. And so it means that economic cooperation is taking primary position in Iran's agenda with Azerbaijan than it was like a couple of years ago. So Azerbaijan can only welcome this development, and Azerbaijan would be very much pleased if those projects are realized. Let's see what will happen next.
This were Turaj Shiralilu, political analyst from Tehran, Iran, and Ahmad Alili, director of the Caucasus Policy Analysis Center. See you very soon indeed.